Marcus Grant wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the security station's broken monitor. The mining colony at the edge of space was quiet today, which meant something was wrong. In his experience, quiet never meant peace. It meant trouble was coming. He was 32 years old and tired of fighting. 8 years ago, he left the Marines after watching too many friends die in Earth's last big war. He thought coming to Outpost Meridian would give him peace. He would train local security guards, help protect miners, and forget about the blood and the screaming. But the universe had other plans. The outpost was home to 8,000 people. Most were human miners, but there were also traders from other alien species. They came here to buy minerals and sell supplies. The station floated in space near an asteroid field, far from Earth and far from help. Marcus liked it that way. Nobody asked questions here. Nobody cared about his past. "Marcus, you seeing this?" The voice came through his radio. It was Kyle Morrison, the station's tactical officer. Kyle was young, maybe 26, with bright eyes that still believed in following the rules. Marcus knew those eyes would change soon. War changed everyone. Seeing what? Marcus asked, walking toward the main control room. The sensors. 3 supply ships didn't arrive this week, and there's something strange on the long-range scanners. Could be nothing, but Marcus felt his stomach tighten. In the military, they called it the sixth sense. The feeling that something was watching you, hunting you. He had ignored that feeling once and watched his entire squad get ambushed. He would not ignore it again. The control room was small and cramped. Computer screens covered the walls, showing empty space in every direction. Commander Patricia Hayes stood in the center, her arms crossed. She was a career officer who believed in protocol and proper channels. She did not like Marcus because he questioned orders. "Grant," she said without looking at him, "Morrison tells me you're worried about missing ships. The Galactic Council assures us the borders are secure. There's no threat." "The Council sits in comfortable offices 100 light years away," Marcus said. "They don't know what's happening out here. The Council has kept peace for 200 years. We have to trust them." Marcus wanted to argue, but he knew it was useless. Commander Hayes believed in the system. She could not imagine someone would attack a Council station. Marcus knew better. Peace only lasted until someone decided they wanted war. He left the control room and headed to the civilian section. The station had a small bar where workers gathered after their shifts. It smelled like recycled air and cheap alcohol. Marcus ordered water and sat in the corner, watching people laugh and talk. They had no idea danger was coming. "Mind if I join you?" A woman's voice broke his thoughts. Dr. Lisa Chen stood beside his table, holding a drink. She was a scientist who studied alien biology. Smart, kind, and way too optimistic about human nature. "Free station," Marcus said, gesturing to the empty chair. Lisa sat down and studied his face. "You look worried. More than usual, I mean." "Just tired." "You're a terrible liar, Marcus Grant." She smiled, but there was concern in her eyes. "Kyle told me about the missing ships. Should I be worried?" Marcus wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her everything would be fine. But he respected Lisa too much to lie. "I don't know yet. But stay alert. If I tell you to get to an escape pod, don't ask questions. Just run." The smile faded from her face. "That bad?" "Maybe, maybe not. But I've learned to trust my instincts." Before Lisa could respond, alarms screamed through the station. Red lights flashed on every wall. Marcus was on his feet instantly, his military training taking over. People in the bar started shouting, confused and scared. "Everyone stay calm," Marcus yelled. "Get to your quarters and wait for instructions." He grabbed Lisa's arm. "Go to the medical bay. Start preparing for casualties." "Casualties? Marcus, what's happening?" "Just go, now." Marcus ran through the corridors toward the control room. His radio crackled to life. It was Kyle, and his voice was shaking. "Marcus, we've got a ship coming out of hyperspace. Big one, really big. And it's not responding to our hails." "How big?" "Battleship class." "Maybe bigger." "I've never seen a ship like this." Marcus burst into the control room. The main screen showed a massive warship floating in space, dark and menacing. Its hull was covered in armor plates and weapon ports lined every surface. This was not a trader. This was a killer. Commander Hayes stared at the screen, her face pale. "That's not a Council ship." "What is it?" "Krath," Kyle whispered, reading data from his console. "The computer identifies it as Krath design. But that's impossible. The Krath Empire is on the other side of the galaxy." Marcus had heard stories about the Krath. They were warriors. Conquerors who believed strength was everything. They despised weakness and respected only power. The Galactic Council had negotiated a peace treaty with them decades ago, agreeing to stay out of each other's territory. "They're hailing us," Kyle said. "Put it on screen," Commander Hayes ordered. The view screen flickered and a face appeared. The creature was reptilian, with scales that looked like armor and eyes like burning coals. It was huge, probably 7 feet tall even sitting down. When it spoke, its voice was deep and filled with contempt. "Humans, I am War Commander Vexthor of the Krath Empire. Your species has been granted membership in the Galactic Council without proving yourselves worthy. This is an insult to all true warriors. We have come to test your strength." Commander Hayes stepped forward. "This station is protected by Council law. Any attack will be considered an act of war." Vexthor laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "The Council is weak. They hide behind laws and treaties. We are Krath. We believe in strength. If you want to live, you will surrender immediately. We will take your station and enslave your people. If you resist, we will kill everyone. You have 1 hour to decide." The screen went dark. Silence filled the control room. Marcus could hear people breathing, could feel the fear spreading like poison. "We have to contact the Council," Commander Hayes said, but her voice was weak. "They'll send help." "Help is weeks away," Marcus said quietly. "We have 1 hour, then we surrender. We have no choice. Look at that ship. We can't fight that." Marcus turned to face her. "If we surrender, they'll enslave or kill us anyway. The Krath respect strength, not submission. Our only chance is to make them pay so much blood for this station that they think twice about attacking other human colonies." "That's insane. Most of these people aren't soldiers. They're miners, scientists, families." "I know. But sometimes ordinary people have to do extraordinary things." Kyle stepped forward. "I'm with Marcus. We should fight." Commander Hayes looked between them, then at the dark warship on the screen. Finally, she nodded. "All right. Grant, you have tactical command. Morrison, help him prepare defenses. I'll try to evacuate as many civilians as possible." "We have 58 minutes. Marcus grabbed Kyle's shoulder. "Get every security officer to the armory. Wake up anyone with military experience. I don't care if they retired 20 years ago. We need everyone who knows how to hold a gun. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to turn this mining station into a fortress. Or die trying." The next hour passed in a blur. Marcus ran through the station, identifying defensive positions and weak points. He had miners seal off sections they could not defend. He had engineers rig mining explosives to blow critical corridors. He positioned fighters at choke points where the Krath would have to advance slowly. A young pilot named Jake Harper found him in the maintenance tunnels. Jake was maybe 23, cocky and brave in the way young people are before life teaches them fear. "Sergeant Grant, I've loaded 3 shuttles with civilians. I can hide them in the asteroid field. If things go bad, they'll have a chance." Marcus gripped the young man's hand. "Good work. Get them out, then come back if you want. But nobody will blame you if you run." Jake grinned. "Run? Are you kidding? I've been training my whole life for this. Besides, someone has to watch your back." Marcus found Lisa in the medical bay, organizing supplies with grim efficiency. She looked up when he entered, and he saw tears in her eyes. "I'm scared, Marcus." "Me too. Will we survive?" He wanted to lie, to give her hope. But Lisa deserved the truth. "I don't know. But I promise you this. We'll make them remember us. Every single one of us." The hour expired. Marcus stood in the main corridor with 300 volunteers. Most were not soldiers. They were miners with cutting tools, engineers with welding torches, security guards with basic training. Against a Krath war fleet, they should have been nothing. But Marcus saw something in their eyes. Fear, yes, but also determination. These people had homes, families, dreams. They would not surrender them without a fight. The station shook as the first Krath boarding pod slammed into the hull. Marcus raised his rifle and looked at the men and women beside him. "Remember," he said quietly, "they think we're weak. They think we'll break easily. Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." The doors exploded inward. Krath warriors poured through, 7 feet tall and armored like tanks. They roared their battle cries, expecting easy prey. Instead, they found Marcus Grant and 300 humans who refused to die quietly. The first explosion ripped through the Krath formation. The second The explosion threw Marcus against the wall. His ears rang from the blast, but he forced himself up. Around him, smoke filled the corridor. He could hear screaming, both human and alien. The smell of burned metal and blood filled his nose. Through the smoke, he saw the Krath warriors stumbling in confusion. The trap had worked perfectly. Marcus had rigged mining explosives in the ceiling, and when the first wave entered, he triggered them. Tons of debris crushed at least 20 Krath soldiers. The others were disoriented and exposed. "Now," Marcus shouted. "Hit them now while they're down." The human defenders opened fire from protected positions. Bullets and plasma bolts lit up the darkness. The Krath were tough, their scales absorbing shots that would kill a human instantly, but concentrated fire brought them down. One by one, the massive warriors fell. Marcus moved along the line, checking his people. A miner named Greg was clutching his arm where a Krath weapon had grazed him. Marcus helped him to cover. "Stay down," Marcus ordered. "You did good. Let the others handle this wave." "There's more coming," Greg gasped. "I can hear them in the walls." He was right. Marcus could hear the sound of cutting torches and heavy footsteps. The Krath were trying to flank them through the maintenance tunnels. Smart. But Marcus had expected that. "Kyle," Marcus said into his radio. "They're coming through Section 12. Trigger Trap 3. Copy that." Kyle's voice crackled back. "Triggering now." Another explosion rocked the station. Marcus felt the floor shake beneath his feet. From the maintenance tunnels came screams and the sound of collapsing metal. The Krath had walked straight into a section they had rigged to vent into space. Those aliens would be floating dead in the void now. But more kept coming. Wave after wave of Krath warriors poured into the station. They were learning from their mistakes now, moving more carefully, checking for traps. Marcus knew his tricks would only work so many times. Captain Roy Blake appeared at Marcus's side. The security chief was bleeding from a cut above his eye, but his jaw was set with determination. He had doubted Marcus at first, even threatened to report him for preparing defenses without authorization. Now he was one of Marcus's most reliable fighters. "We're holding Sector 3, Blake reported, but we lost 8 people in the last push. The Krath are adapting fast. How many total casualties?" Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer. 43 dead, 62 wounded. Blake's voice was heavy. "Marcus, we've only been fighting for 2 hours. At this rate, I know." Marcus looked at the tactical display on his wrist computer. The Krath controlled nearly a third of the station now. More boarding pods were attaching to the hull every few minutes. "But look at their casualties. We've killed or wounded over 200 Krath. That's unprecedented. They've never lost this many soldiers taking a single location." Blake managed a grim smile. "Guess they weren't expecting us to fight back this hard." "That was their first mistake," Marcus said. "Now we make sure they regret it." A message came through the station-wide communication system. It was Commander Hayes, and she sounded exhausted. "All personnel, this is Commander Hayes. We've successfully evacuated 1,000 civilians to hidden positions in the asteroid field. Another 2,000 are sheltering in the reinforced sections. To everyone fighting, you are giving them a chance to live. Whatever happens to us, remember that." Marcus felt a weight lift slightly from his shoulders. At least some people would survive this. That had to count for something. The fighting continued through the night, though day and night meant nothing on a space station. Marcus moved from position to position, rallying defenders, reorganizing lines, plugging gaps where the Krath broke through. He fought alongside miners, scientists, security guards, anyone who could hold a weapon. In Sector 7, he found Jake Harper and a team of pilots fighting a desperate rearguard action. They were using mining lasers as weapons, cutting through Krath armor with concentrated beams. It was improvised and dangerous, but it was working. "Jake," Marcus called. "Fall back to the secondary position." "You can't hold here. Just 1 more minute." Jake was grinning despite the chaos. "These things are just getting warmed up." A Krath warrior charged their position. Jake swung his mining laser around and cut the alien in half. The young pilot whooped in triumph. Marcus could not help but admire his spirit, even if it was going to get him killed. But Jake's luck ran out. More Krath appeared, too many to fight. Marcus grabbed the young pilot and physically dragged him back as plasma bolts sizzled past their heads. They retreated through a maintenance shaft, sealing the door behind them just as the Krath reached it. "That was fun," Jake panted, still smiling. "Fun is not getting killed," Marcus growled. "Stay close to me from now on." As they moved through the station, Marcus saw the cost of their resistance. Bodies lay in corridors, both human and Krath. Walls were scarred with weapons fire. Entire sections were open to space where the hull had been breached. The station was dying, but it was taking a lot of the enemy with it. Marcus reached the medical bay where Lisa was working. The place looked like a nightmare. Wounded people covered every surface. Lisa and her team moved between them, doing what they could with limited supplies. Blood covered her medical coat and her face was drawn with exhaustion. "How are you holding up?" Marcus asked. Lisa looked up from a patient. For a moment, her professional mask slipped and he saw the fear and sadness beneath. "I'm trying to save lives faster than you're creating casualties. It's not working." "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "I wish there was another way." "I know." She touched his hand briefly. "Just keep them safe as long as you can. That's all anyone can ask." An explosion shook the medical bay. Ceiling panels fell and the lights flickered. Through the walls, Marcus could hear Krath voices getting closer. "They're pushing toward the medical section." Kyle's voice came through the radio. "Marcus, they know the wounded are there. They're trying to break our morale." Marcus made a decision. "All available fighters converge on the medical bay. We hold this position no matter what." The next hour was the hardest fighting yet. The Krath launched a massive assault, throwing hundreds of warriors at the medical bay's defenses. Marcus and his team fought like demons, refusing to give a single meter of ground. The corridor outside became a killing ground. Captain Blake fought beside Marcus, his rifle never stopping. But a Krath warrior broke through their line. The alien was wounded and dying, but it had enough strength left for one last act of violence. It raised its weapon toward the medical bay entrance. Blake did not hesitate. He threw himself in front of the shot. The plasma bolt hit him square in the chest, burning through his armor. Marcus caught him as he fell, but they both knew it was fatal. "Tell my kid," Blake gasped. "Tell them their dad died protecting people. That matters, right?" "It matters," Marcus said, his throat tight. "It matters more than anything." Blake smiled and closed his eyes for the last time. Marcus gently lowered him to the floor and stood up. Rage burned in his chest. Good people were dying because the Krath thought humans were weak. He would make them pay for every life. The Krath assault finally broke. They pulled back, leaving their dead behind. Marcus counted 30 alien bodies in the corridor alone. The human defenders had lost 15 fighters, including Captain Blake. The cost was terrible, but they had held. Marcus slumped against a wall, exhaustion hitting him like a physical force. His hands shook from adrenaline. Around him, other defenders sat or lay where they were, too tired to move. Some were crying. Others stared at nothing, their minds struggling to process what they had experienced. Kyle came to him with a report. The tactical officer looked like he had aged 10 years in the last few hours. "We've been fighting for 8 hours now. We've lost almost 100 fighters, another 100 wounded. The Krath control 40% of the station." "And their losses?" Marcus asked. Kyle checked his datapad. "Best estimate, over 400 Krath dead. Maybe another 100 wounded. Marcus, we're actually killing them faster than they're killing us." "They have thousands of warriors on that ship," Marcus said. "We have less than 200 fighters left. The math doesn't work in our favor." "Maybe not, but we're making them bleed for every meter. That has to mean something." Before Marcus could respond, Commander Hayes appeared. She was covered in dust and looked shaken. Behind her, several officers supported a wounded communications specialist. "The Krath hit the command center," Hayes said. "We fought them off, but they destroyed most of our long-range communication equipment. I managed to send one message to Earth before it went down. They know we're under attack. They know we need help." "Will help come in time?" Kyle asked. Hayes shook her head. "The nearest fleet is 3 weeks away. We're on our own." Silence fell over the group. 3 weeks. They had maybe 3 days of ammunition left if they were lucky. 3 weeks might as well be forever. "Then we make these 3 days count," Marcus said. "We hurt them so badly that when Earth's fleet arrives, the Krath will think twice about ever attacking humanity again." Lisa emerged from the medical bay. She had heard the conversation. Her face was pale but determined. "The wounded who can fight want to return to the line. I told them no, but they're not listening to me." Marcus looked at the medical bay entrance. Inside, he could see people. 3 days had passed since the Krath attack began. Marcus had not slept more than a few hours total. His body ran on adrenaline and determination. Around him, the station was falling apart. Fires burned in sections they could no longer reach. Life support was failing in half the habitable areas. The smell of death hung in the recycled air. Less than 800 defenders remained from the original 3,000 who chose to fight. They held only a quarter of the station now, clustered around the reactor core and the remaining life support systems. But they still fought. Every corridor, every room, every meter was paid for in blood. Marcus stood at a makeshift command post looking at tactical displays that flickered and died as power systems failed. Kyle worked beside him, coordinating the scattered defense teams through a network of runners since most of their communications equipment was destroyed. "How much ammunition do we have left?" Marcus asked. Kyle checked his notes. Paper notes because the computers kept dying. Maybe 6 hours of sustained fighting. After that, we're down to improvised weapons. Mining tools, explosives, whatever we can find. And the Krath? Our best estimate puts their casualties over 1,500. That's nearly half their initial force. Kyle's voice held a note of wonder. "Marcus, no one has ever inflicted this kind of damage on the Krath, not in their entire history of conquest." "Good," Marcus said grimly. "But it's not enough. We need to make them remember this forever." A runner arrived, a young woman named Amy who worked in environmental systems before the war. She was covered in soot and bleeding from a dozen small cuts. "Commander Hayes needs you in Sector 4, Amy panted. "The Krath are requesting a temporary ceasefire to exchange wounded." Marcus and Kyle exchanged looks. A ceasefire? That was unexpected. The Krath usually did not care about their wounded. They believed dying in battle was an honor. "Could be a trick," Kyle said. "Maybe. But we need to treat our wounded too. Tell Commander Hayes I'm on my way." Marcus found Commander Hayes at the forward defensive line. She stood in a ruined corridor, facing a massive Krath warrior across 50 meters of scorched deck plating. The alien was bigger than any Marcus had seen before, wearing armor decorated with battle honors. "That's Vex Thor," Hayes said quietly. "Their war commander. He wants to talk to you specifically." Marcus stepped forward, his rifle ready but lowered. This close, he could see the damage his people had inflicted. Vex Thor's armor was scarred and dented. One of his eyes was swollen shut. But the other eye burned with intelligence and something else. "Respect, maybe." "You are Marcus Grant," Vex Thor said. The translation device made his voice sound flat, but Marcus could hear the emotion beneath. "The one who commands this resistance." "I am," Marcus replied. "You wanted to talk?" "I wanted to see the warrior who has cost me half my army." Vex Thor tilted his head, studying Marcus like a puzzle. "You do not look impressive. You are small, weak, your technology is inferior, yet you fight like no species I have encountered." "You underestimated us," Marcus said simply. "That was your mistake." "Yes." Vex Thor's remaining eye narrowed. "We believed the Galactic Council had made your species soft. We thought you had forgotten how to wage war. We were wrong. Humans never forgot," Marcus said. "We just chose peace. There's a difference." "I am beginning to understand that." Vex Thor paused. "I have fought across 100 worlds. I have defeated warriors of 50 species, but never have I seen defenders fight with such ferocity. You are outnumbered, outgunned, dying by the hundreds. Yet you do not surrender. Why?" Marcus thought about the question. About Lisa working herself to exhaustion to save the wounded. About Jake still making jokes even as death surrounded him. About Captain Blake throwing himself on a plasma bolt to protect others. About thousands of ordinary people who found extraordinary courage when they needed it most. "Because surrender means death or slavery," Marcus said, "and because every hour we hold is another hour humanity has to prepare its defenses. You came here to test our strength. Consider it tested. We're sending you a message, Vex Thor. Leave humanity alone. We're not worth the cost." The Krath commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "I have already sent that message to my empire. But it is too late for me. I cannot retreat. The Krath do not accept failure. If I return defeated, I will be executed. So we both die here," Marcus said. "Seems like a waste, perhaps. But death in battle is no waste. It is the greatest honor." Vex Thor straightened. "I offer you terms. Surrender now. I will spare the remaining fighters, recognizing their courage. Your wounded will be treated. The civilians will be released." It was tempting. So tempting. Marcus could end the bloodshed right now, save the people who trusted him, but he knew better. "I don't believe you," Marcus said. "Your culture respects only strength. If we surrender, you'll see it as weakness. You'll kill us or enslave us anyway." Vex Thor was silent for a long moment. Then he inclined his head. "You are wise as well as brave. Yes, my superiors would demand I make an example of you. I could not protect you even if I wished to." "Then we keep fighting," Marcus said. Every Krath who dies here is one less who can attack Earth, Mars, the colonies. We'll fight until the last defender falls or you decide we're too expensive to kill. You are already too expensive, Vex Thor admitted. This operation was supposed to be simple, a demonstration of Krath superiority. Instead, it has become my greatest defeat, he paused. When this is over, when the songs are sung and the histories written, humans will be remembered. The galaxy will know that your species does not yield. That's all we ask, Marcus said. That and for you to leave before we kill any more of your warriors. Vex Thor bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. I cannot leave. But we will proceed with the ceasefire. 4 hours to tend our wounded. After that, we resume combat, and Marcus Grant, when we meet again, it will be as enemies. But know that I respect you as I respect few others. The Krath commander turned and walked away, his damaged armor clanking with each step. Marcus watched him go, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Respect for a worthy enemy, sadness that such courage would be wasted in a pointless war, and determination to make sure Vex Thor never forgot this battle. During the ceasefire, medical teams from both sides moved into the contested zones to retrieve wounded. Marcus was surprised to see the Krath treating the arrangement with honor. They did not attack the medics or try to gain tactical advantage. Warriors who minutes ago were trying to kill each other now worked side by side to carry injured off the battlefield. Lisa worked without rest, treating human and Krath wounded alike. Marcus found her in what remained of the medical bay, her hands steady despite exhaustion as she sealed a burn on a young miner's arm. You should rest, Marcus said. I will. When this is over. Lisa finished with the miner and moved to the next patient. I spoke with some of the Krath wounded. They're confused. They expected us to execute prisoners. We're not monsters, Marcus said. Even if they are our enemies, I know. That's why I love you. Lisa said it casually, not looking up from her work, but Marcus felt the words hit him like a physical blow. Lisa, don't, she said, finally looking at him. Don't say anything. I just needed you to know. In case... She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Marcus wanted to tell her he felt the same way, that she had given him something to fight for beyond duty and survival. But a new alarm started blaring before he could speak. The ceasefire was ending early. Through the walls came the sound of weapons fire and screaming. The Krath were attacking from a new direction. Through sections everyone thought were sealed. They're going for the medical bay. Kyle's voice crackled over the radio. Marcus, we can't hold them. There's too many. Marcus grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound of fighting. He could hear the Krath war cries getting closer. The wounded patients tried to arm themselves, but most could barely stand. A wall exploded inward. Krath warriors poured through the breach. Marcus fired, dropping the first 2, but more kept coming. Too many to stop. Then Jake Harper appeared, flying a maintenance loader like a battering ram. The young pilot crashed the heavy machine into the Krath formation, sending aliens flying. He jumped out, grinning his crazy grin. Figured you could use some help, Jake yelled, opening fire with a salvaged weapon. Together they held the breach. Other defenders rallied to their position. For precious minutes they stopped the Krath advance. But it could not last. Marcus's rifle overheated and jammed. Jake was down to his last power cell. A Krath warrior broke through their line, heading straight for the wounded. Marcus threw himself at the alien, tackling it despite the massive size difference. They went down together, the Krath's claws raking across Marcus's armor. Jake shot the Krath at point-blank range, killing it. But more aliens were advancing. The situation was hopeless. Marcus looked back and saw Lisa, still trying to save patients, refusing to abandon them. Fall back, Marcus ordered. Get the wounded out, now. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The Krath had cut off their escape routes. Marcus realized with cold certainty that this was the end. They would make their last stand here in this ruined medical bay. Then Commander Hayes' voice came over the station-wide speakers. She sounded different, determined, almost peaceful. 1 week, 7 days of hell. That was how long they had been fighting. The station was barely recognizable anymore. Whole sections floated dead in space. The reactor flickered, threatening to fail completely. And still, they fought. Marcus stood in what remained of the command center, looking at a display that showed their desperate situation. Only 150 defenders left. They held maybe 10% of the station. Ammunition was gone. They fought with mining tools, makeshift bombs, and pure desperation. Kyle was beside him, his face gaunt from lack of food and sleep. The young officer had aged years in just days. But his eyes still held determination. "The Krath are massing for a final assault," Kyle said quietly. "They're bringing everything they have left. This time they'll push through no matter the cost." Marcus nodded. He had expected this. The Krath could not afford to let this siege continue. They had lost thousands of warriors. Their reputation was in ruins. They needed to end it, whatever the price. "How many Krath are left?" Marcus asked. "Best guess, maybe 500 combat-capable warriors. We've killed or wounded over 2,000. Kyle's voice held a note of disbelief. "Marcus, we've destroyed half their invasion force. No one has ever done that to the Krath." "It's not enough," Marcus said. 500 against 150? The math still doesn't work, so what do we do? Marcus had been thinking about this for hours. Days, really. There was one option left. One desperate, terrible option that might just work. "We turn the station into a bomb," Marcus said. "Overload the fusion reactor. The explosion will destroy everything within 100 kilometers. The Krath fleet, their warriors, all of it." Kyle stared at him. "And us. It will destroy us too." "Yes." "Marcus, there has to be another way. If there is, I can't see it." Marcus met Kyle's eyes. "We're dead anyway, Kyle, we all know that. But this way, we take them with us. We send a message that attacking humanity costs everything. Every alien species in the galaxy will hear about this. They'll think twice before coming after us." Kyle was quiet for a long time. Then he straightened. "All right. If we're doing this, we should let people vote. Give them a choice." They gathered the remaining defenders in the largest intact room. 150 people, dirty and wounded and exhausted. But when Marcus explained the plan, not a single person objected. A young security guard named Danny Brooks stood up. He was barely 20 years old and looked like he should be in college, not fighting aliens. "My family is on Earth," Danny said. "My mom, my little brother. If the Krath win here, they'll attack Earth eventually. I'd rather die making sure my family is safe. I vote yes." One by one, every defender voted the same way. They would rather die taking the enemy with them than surrender or be killed helplessly. Marcus felt pride and terrible sadness. These people deserved to live, to go home, to have futures. But the universe was not fair. Marcus and Kyle went to the reactor core. The massive machine hummed with barely contained energy. They began the process of overriding safety systems, setting the reactor on a path to catastrophic overload. Marcus set the timer for 12 hours. Enough time for one last stand. He sent a message to Vexithor on an open channel, making sure every Krath could hear. "War Commander Vexithor, this is Marcus Grant. We have initiated reactor overload. In 12 hours, this station will explode with enough force to destroy your entire fleet. You have that time to withdraw. If you stay, you die with us. This is not a bluff. We would rather die than let you win." The response came quickly. Vexithor's face appeared on a damaged view screen. The Krath commander looked tired and angry. "You are bluffing, human. Your species values life too much to commit mass suicide." "Then stay and find out," Marcus replied. 12 hours, Vexithor, withdraw or die. Your choice." He cut the transmission. Now it was a waiting game. Would Vexithor believe the threat? Would he retreat to save his fleet? Or would his pride demand he call the bluff? Hours passed. The Krath did not attack. But they did not withdraw either. Marcus watched the clock count down. 10 hours, 9, 8. Lisa found him staring at the reactor controls. She looked terrible, covered in dried blood and exhaustion, but she managed a weak smile. "So this is really happening," she said. "We're really going to do this, unless the Krath retreat. But I don't think they will. Their pride won't let them." Lisa moved closer and rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad I met you, Marcus Grant, even if the timing was terrible." "Me too," Marcus said, putting his arm around her. "I wish we had more time. We have now." "That's something." They stood together, watching the reactor timer count down. 5 hours, 4. The Krath still had not moved. Then, with 3 hours remaining, the Krath attacked. Not with boarding parties this time. They were done with ground tactics. Massive weapons on their warship began firing, trying to blast through to the reactor core and disable it. The station shook from the impacts. Entire sections collapsed. The defenders scrambled to protect the reactor, knowing that if the Krath damaged it wrong, the overload would fail. Their sacrifice would be meaningless. Marcus led teams to shore up damaged areas. They used debris, bodies, anything they could find to protect the reactor chamber. Around them, the station was disintegrating. People died as compartments collapsed or vented to space. But they kept working. Jake Harper appeared, his flight suit torn and bloody. "Marcus, the Krath are trying to land assault teams directly on the reactor level. We can't stop them all. Then we slow them down," Marcus said. "Every second counts." They fought a desperate rearguard action. The Krath came in waves, desperate to reach the reactor. Marcus and Jake held a critical choke point, firing until their weapons ran dry, then fighting hand to hand. A Krath warrior broke through. Marcus grappled with it, but the alien was too strong. It threw him aside and advanced toward Jake. The young pilot raised his empty weapon uselessly. The Krath fired. Jake dove, trying to dodge, but the plasma bolt caught him in the chest, burning through his armor. He went down hard. Marcus roared in rage and threw himself at the Krath. He grabbed a piece of debris and smashed it into the alien's head again and again until it stopped moving. Then he rushed to Jake's side. The wound was fatal. Marcus knew it instantly. Jake knew it too. The young pilot looked up with pain-filled eyes that still somehow held that damn smile. "Did we win?" Jake gasped. "Did we stop them?" Marcus looked at the reactor timer. 90 minutes left. "Yeah, kid, we won. You did good. Tell my mom. Tell her I wasn't scared." Jake's breath rattled. "Tell her I died doing something that mattered." "I promise," Marcus said, his vision blurring with tears. Jake's smile widened one last time. "Guess I finally got to be a hero, huh, boss?" Then the light faded from his eyes. Marcus closed Jake's eyes and stood up. Something broke inside him. All the rage, all the fear, all the grief he had been holding back for days came pouring out. He grabbed his rifle and charged into the Krath position, screaming his fury. The other defenders followed him. One final suicidal charge. They threw themselves at the Krath with absolute abandon. They had nothing left to lose. They were already dead, so they might as well take as many enemies with them as possible. The Krath broke. For the first time in the entire siege, the alien warriors retreated in disorder. They had never faced anything like this. Humans who fought without fear, without hope, with only rage and determination. Marcus found himself standing in a corridor filled with dead Krath, his rifle empty, his armor torn. Around him were maybe 50 human defenders, all that remained. They had won. The reactor was safe. The Krath could not stop the overload now. 30 minutes left on the timer. Then Kyle's voice came over the radio, shaking with excitement. "Marcus, something's happening." New contacts just dropped out of hyperspace. "Multiple ships!" "Big ones." Marcus felt his heart stop. More Krath? No, they could not be. The Krath fleet was here. Unless they had called for reinforcements. But that did not make sense. They would not arrive so quickly. "What ships?" Marcus demanded. "Who are they?" "They're transmitting identification codes." "Marcus, they're human. It's the Earth Alliance fleet." They actually made it. Marcus could not believe it. The message Commander Hayes sent had reached Earth. And somehow, impossibly, the Alliance had mobilized and arrived in time. Hope, which Marcus had not felt in days, surged through him. The Alliance fleet was massive. 30 warships led by the flagship Washington. They came in with weapons blazing, hitting the damaged Krath fleet with overwhelming force. The Krath, caught between the station's impending explosion and the Alliance attack, tried to fight back. But they were outnumbered and exhausted. A transmission came through to Marcus. It was a woman's voice, strong and commanding. "Outpost Meridian, this is Admiral Helen Stone of the Earth Alliance. We received your distress call. Reinforcements are here." "Can you disable the reactor overload?" Marcus looked at Kyle. The tactical officer was already running toward the reactor controls. "We can disable it." "We can actually disable it." They worked frantically, reversing the overload sequence. With 5 minutes left on the timer, Kyle shut down the critical systems. The reactor stabilized. The explosion would not happen. Marcus slumped against a wall, unable to process what had just happened. They were alive. Against every expectation, against all logic, they had survived. 2 weeks after the battle ended, Marcus stood on Earth for the first time in 5 years. The planet looked beautiful from orbit, blue and green and alive. But Marcus felt like he was visiting an alien world. He did not belong here anymore. He belonged in the darkness between stars where the fighting happened. The survivors of Outpost Meridian had been evacuated on Alliance medical ships. Of the 8,000 people originally on the station, just over 2,000 lived. Most were civilians Jake Harper had evacuated in those early hours. Of the 3,000 who stayed to fight, only 48 survived the final battle. 48 out of 3,000. The number haunted Marcus. He saw their faces in his sleep. Captain Blake throwing himself on a plasma bolt. Commander Hayes choosing to die so others could live. Jake Harper smiling even as life left his eyes. Thousands more whose names Marcus would never forget. Now he stood in a military hospital, waiting to testify before the Alliance High Command. Kyle Morrison was beside him, looking uncomfortable in a clean uniform. The tactical officer had been promoted to captain for his actions during the siege. He deserved more than that, Marcus thought. They all did. You ready for this? Kyle asked. No, Marcus said honestly. They're going to want to make us heroes. Pin medals on us. Make speeches about sacrifice and glory. But there was nothing glorious about what happened. It was just survival. Maybe people need heroes, Kyle suggested. Maybe they need to believe the sacrifice meant something. It did mean something. We stopped the Krath, we bought time for Earth to prepare. We proved humanity could fight back. But that doesn't make it any easier to live with. Before Kyle could respond, Admiral Helen Stone appeared. The woman who commanded the relief fleet was tall and imposing, her gray hair cut military short. She looked at Marcus with an expression that mixed respect and sadness. Sergeant Grant, Captain Morrison, thank you for coming. I know this is difficult. Just Marcus, ma'am. I'm not military anymore. Actually, that's one thing we need to discuss. The Alliance wants to reinstate your commission, promote you to colonel, put you in charge of training our special operations forces. Marcus shook his head. With respect, no. I'm done fighting. Marcus, you're the most effective combat commander humanity has seen in generations. What you accomplished at Outpost Meridian changed everything. Other species respect us now. Fear us even. We need people like you to prepare for the next crisis. Then train the next generation. But I can't do it. Every time I close my eyes, I see the people I sent to die. I can't carry that weight anymore. Admiral Stone studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I understand. The offer stands if you change your mind. Now the High Command is waiting. The hearing room was filled with military officers and government officials. Cameras recorded everything. This testimony would be broadcast across Earth and to every human colony. Marcus felt exposed, vulnerable. He preferred the honesty of combat to the politics of this place. For 3 hours they questioned him. What strategies did he use? How did he motivate the defenders? What lessons could be learned? Marcus answered honestly, refusing to sugarcoat anything. He described the fear, the exhaustion, the terrible choices he had to make. He talked about the people who died, making sure their names were recorded for history. Finally, a politician asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Sergeant Grant, would you do it again? Knowing the cost, would you make the same decisions? Marcus took a deep breath. The room fell silent, waiting for his answer. Yes, Marcus said quietly. I would do it again because the alternative was extinction or slavery. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't bring back the dead. War isn't glorious. It's hell. It's watching good people die for inches of ground. It's making choices where every option is terrible. Anyone who tells you war is heroic is lying, or has never seen real combat. He looked directly at the cameras. The people on Outpost Meridian were not professional soldiers. They were miners, scientists, engineers. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things because someone had to. If you want to honor them, don't make them into legends. Remember that they were human. They were scared. They wanted to go home. But they stood and fought because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Marcus paused, his throat tight. And if you really want to honor them, make sure their sacrifice wasn't wasted. Build a military that can protect humanity without needing desperate last stands. Prepare for the next threat so fewer people have to die. That's how you honor the fallen. Not with parades and medals, but by making sure it never has to happen again. The room was silent when he finished. Some officials looked uncomfortable. Others nodded in agreement. The testimony ended and Marcus walked out feeling drained. Outside, Kyle caught up with him. That was intense. You didn't hold back. They needed to hear the truth, not some sanitized version that makes war sound acceptable. I'm taking command of a new ship, Kyle said. The Alliance is building it now. They're naming it the Meridian after the outpost. They want you to be my executive officer. Kyle, I know, you said no to the Admiral, but think about it. We work well together. And someone needs to make sure the next generation learns the right lessons. I'll think about it, Marcus promised, but he doubted he would change his mind. That evening, Marcus visited the hospital where the wounded survivors were recovering. Lisa was there, her injuries slowly healing. She had refused to go home, choosing to stay and help treat other survivors. That was Lisa, always putting others first. He found her in a rehabilitation ward, helping a young soldier learn to walk again with a prosthetic leg. She looked up when Marcus entered, and her smile made something in his chest tighten. "How did the testimony go?" she asked after finishing with her patient. "About as well as expected. I told them the truth. Some people didn't like it." "Good. Someone needs to be honest about what war really costs." Lisa led him to a quiet corner. "Marcus, I've been thinking about us, about what happens next." Marcus felt fear, different from combat fear, but just as intense. "And?" "I'm not the same person I was before the attack. I've seen things I can't unsee. Lost people I can't get back. Sometimes I wake up and forget where I am, expecting to hear alarms and weapons fire." "Me too," Marcus said softly. "Every night. I don't blame you for what happened. You saved thousands of lives, including mine. But I can't forget it either. We both need time to heal, to figure out who we are now." Marcus felt his heart sink, but he understood. "So this is goodbye?" Lisa took his hand. "Not goodbye. Just not right now. We both have too many ghosts. But maybe someday, when we've both found some peace, we can try again." "I'll wait," Marcus said. "However long it takes." "Don't wait for me, Marcus. Live your life. Heal. And if our paths cross again when we're both ready, then we'll see." She squeezed his hand. "But you need to forgive yourself first. That's the hardest part." A week later, Marcus attended the memorial service for the fallen defenders. They held it at a new monument built in Earth orbit, visible from the surface. 3,000 names were carved into black stone, illuminated by lights that never went out. The surviving defenders stood together, 48 people who shared a bond deeper than family. They had seen hell together and somehow come through the other side. They did not need to speak. They understood each other's pain. Marcus found Jake Harper's name on the memorial. He placed his hand on the stone, feeling the carved letters under his fingers. "You were right, kid," Marcus whispered. "You did become a hero. The galaxy will remember you. I promise." Danny Brooks, the young security guard, stood beside him. The boy looked older now, harder. "War did that to people. I'm going back to school," Danny said. "Psychology. I want to help soldiers deal with trauma. Make sure the next generation gets the support we didn't have." "That's good," Marcus said. "We need people like you." "What about you?" "What are you going to do?" Marcus had been thinking about that question for weeks. He could not go back to security work on mining colonies. That life felt like it belonged to a different person. He could not join the military again, despite their offers. He had seen enough war. "The Alliance offered me a teaching position," Marcus said, "training officers in unconventional warfare, making sure they're prepared for situations like Outpost Meridian. I think I'm going to take it." "So you're not done fighting after all?" "Not fighting. Preparing. There's a difference. I can't stop the next war, but maybe I can help fewer people die in it." As the memorial service ended, Marcus looked out at Earth hanging in space below. News of the Battle of Outpost Meridian had spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had held emergency sessions. Other species suddenly viewed humanity with new respect, sometimes fear. Some council members were horrified by human brutality. Others were impressed by human determination. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity was not weak. They were survivors who would fight with terrifying intensity when pushed to the edge. The Krath Empire had gone silent, licking its wounds. Vex Thor had been stripped of command and exiled for his failure. But intelligence suggested he still lived, watching humanity from afar. Some analysts worried he might return someday, seeking redemption. Marcus hoped not, but he would be ready if it happened. Marcus stayed at the memorial long after everyone else left. He looked at... 1 year later, Marcus stood at the dedication ceremony for a new space station. It floated in the same asteroid field where Outpost Meridian once stood, built from the wreckage and memory of what came before. The Alliance had named it Outpost Harper, after the young pilot who gave his life saving others. The station was different from the old one. Heavily armed, with military-grade shields and weapons, it served as both a trading post and a warning. a reminder that humanity would defend its territory. But it also had schools, homes, parks, places where life could flourish. Because humans were not just warriors. They were builders too. Hundreds of people attended the ceremony. Survivors of the battle, families of the fallen, government officials, and representatives from other alien species. Even some Kronar warriors came, the only alien race that seemed to truly understand what happened here. Marcus had been asked to give a speech. He did not want to, but Kyle convinced him it was important. The galaxy needed to hear from the man who led the defense. So Marcus stood at a podium looking out at hundreds of faces and spoke. A year ago, this place was hell. People fought and died in these corridors. Good people. Ordinary people who became extraordinary because they had to. I've been asked to talk about heroism, about sacrifice, about humanity's strength, but I want to talk about something else. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I want to talk about Jake Harper. He was 23 years old. He loved flying, terrible jokes, and taking risks. He saved hundreds of civilians in the first hours of the battle, making run after run through enemy fire. He died protecting wounded people he barely knew, not because he was a soldier, not because he was trained for it, but because he believed some things are worth dying for. Marcus looked at the faces in the crowd. Some were crying. I want to talk about Captain Roy Blake. He was a father of two who doubted every decision I made. But when the Krath attacked the medical bay, he threw himself on a plasma bolt to save others. His last words were asking me to tell his kids he died protecting people. I want to talk about Commander Patricia Hayes. She believed in following rules, in trusting the system. When that system failed, she adapted. She gave me command even though it went against everything she believed. And when we needed more time, she sacrificed herself without hesitation. Marcus gripped the podium. These people were not unique. They were not special forces or super soldiers. They were regular humans who found courage when they needed it most. And that's the real message of Outpost Meridian. Not that humanity is tough or violent or unstoppable, but that when you back ordinary humans into a corner, when you threaten everything they love, they discover reserves of strength they never knew they had. He looked directly at the alien representatives. The Krath came here thinking humans were weak. They were wrong. Not because we're better warriors or have superior technology, but because humans fight for each other. We fight for ideas, for dreams, for the people we love. And we never forget those who tried to take that away from us. Marcus took a breath. This station is named after Jake Harper, but it stands for all 3,000 defenders who died here. Every person who fought, every person who made the ultimate sacrifice, every person who survived with scars they'll carry forever. This station is their legacy, a reminder that humanity will defend itself, and a warning to anyone who might underestimate us again. The crowd was silent when he finished. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon everyone was on their feet, humans and aliens alike. Marcus did not feel like a hero, but maybe that was the point. Real heroes never did. After the ceremony, Marcus walked through the new station. It felt strange seeing life where death had been. Children playing in corridors where he once fought for every meter. Shops and cafes in spaces that held makeshift hospitals. The station hummed with energy and hope. Kyle found him standing at a viewport looking out at the stars. The young captain wore the uniform of the Alliance Navy now, commanding the new ship Meridian. He had become everything Marcus knew he could be. Good speech, Kyle said, though I think you undersold yourself. I just told the truth. That's all those people deserve. How's the teaching going? Kyle asked. Good. I've got 200 cadets learning unconventional warfare. Most of them think war's exciting until I show them what it really costs. Then they start taking it seriously. That's what we need. People who understand the price. Kyle hesitated. Have you heard from Lisa? Marcus nodded. She sent a message last month. She's working at a trauma center on Mars, helping veterans deal with their experiences. Says she's finding peace helping others heal. And you too? We keep in touch. Maybe someday we'll be ready to try again. But for now, we both need to focus on healing. Marcus managed a small smile. I'm working on forgiving myself. It's harder than fighting the Krath. Danny Brooks approached them, looking professional in civilian clothes. The young man had kept his promise, studying psychology and specializing in combat trauma. He now ran support groups for veterans. Marcus, Kyle, good to see you both. Danny carried a tablet. I wanted to show you something. We've been tracking the impact of the battle across the galaxy. He pulled up reports and data. The Krath Empire has withdrawn from all council borders. They're rebuilding their military but focusing on defense, not conquest. Analysts think the defeat here changed their entire strategic outlook. What about other species? Kyle asked. Mixed reactions. The Vareni are horrified by human brutality and are pushing for restrictions on military development. The Kronar respect us and want military exchanges. Most species are just cautious. They know humans can fight now. Nobody wants to test us. Marcus studied the data, so we bought peace with blood. 3,000 lives for a galaxy that fears us. Not just fear, Danny said. Respect, understanding. Other species know now that humans will defend themselves. That we're not prey. That's worth something. Maybe, Marcus said. But we need to be careful. Respect built on fear is fragile. We need to show the galaxy that humans are more than warriors. Later that evening, Marcus stood alone at the memorial wall they had built into the station. It was smaller than the one in Earth orbit, but just as important. 3,000 names carved in metal, backlit so they glowed in the darkness. He found Jake Harper's name and placed his hand on it, as he did every time he visited. Made you a promise, kid. Said the galaxy would remember you. They do, every human knows your name now. Every alien species that studies the battle learns about the pilot who saved hundreds. You're famous, Marcus smiled sadly. But I bet you'd rather be alive and unknown than dead and famous, wouldn't you? That's the thing about heroes. They don't want to be heroes. They just want to do the right thing and go home. A voice spoke behind him. Talking to ghosts? Marcus turned. Lisa stood there looking healthier than he had seen her in months. Her eyes were brighter, the shadows of trauma fading. She had come a long way in her healing. Lisa, I didn't know you'd be here. I wouldn't miss the dedication. This place is important. These people are important. She moved to stand beside him, looking at the memorial wall. I think about them every day. The ones I couldn't save. Me too. But I'm learning to focus on the ones who lived because of what we did. 2,000 survivors. That's 2,000 futures, 2,000 families, 2,000 chances at happiness. Lisa took his hand. You're healing. I can see it. So are you. Slowly. But yes. She squeezed his hand. I'm not ready yet, Marcus. For us, I mean. But maybe someday, when we're both whole again. I'll still wait, Marcus said. However long it takes. Don't wait, live. That's what they would want. Lisa gestured at the memorial. All these people who died, they wanted us to live. To have futures worth fighting for. So live, Marcus. For them and for yourself. They stood together in silence, hands joined, looking at the names of the fallen. Around them, the station hummed with life. Children laughed. People talked and smiled. The darkness had passed and light was returning. Marcus thought about the galaxy beyond these walls. The Krath Empire rebuilding and watching. The Galactic Council debating humanity's role. Other alien species, some friendly, some cautious, some possibly hostile. The future was uncertain. More conflicts would come. But humanity was ready now. The galaxy had learned a lesson at Outpost Meridian. Humanity was not weak. They were not easy prey. They were survivors who would fight with everything they had when threatened. More importantly, they were a species that valued every life, that mourned their dead, that learned from their mistakes. The Krath had made two critical mistakes. First, they underestimated Marcus Grant, thinking one human could not make a difference. Second, they let him fight, giving him the chance to prove them wrong. Those mistakes cost them half an army and their reputation. But Marcus knew the truth. He was not special. He was just a man who refused to quit. And there were millions more like him across human space. Ordinary people who would become extraordinary when needed. That was humanity's real strength. Not weapons or technology or tactics, but the stubborn refusal to surrender. Even when surrender made sense. What are you thinking? Lisa asked about the future. Whether there will be more wars? Whether we'll be ready? There will be more wars, Lisa said with certainty. The galaxy is too big.